The following podcast contains spoilers for Deadpool 2. Do not listen to this podcast if you haven't seen the movie.
We will be known as X-Force.
Isn't that a little derivative?
You're absolutely right.
This is the Bunzerelly Show.
Following up on 2016's highly successful Deadpool movie, Deadpool 2, now in theaters. But before we get to that, I do want to cover a little bit of business. If you've been following us since last year, we had Orlando Weekly Best of Orlando. It's a local magazine, and last year we were nominated for Best Local Podcast, and it helped get us a lot of exposure and everything. We're going to try to do it again and see if we get a little further. So if you want to support the show, help us grow. If you go to Bunzerelly.com, I made a nice little convenient roadmap, and you guys can find all your instructions there. But if you have a little trouble finding it, we are in the category of local color, and you're looking for Best Local Podcast. This is the write-in round, and I'm going to give you a little more information after the show, but let's talk about some Deadpools. A little interesting history of Deadpool. It's kind of common knowledge, but the start of this was from the 2009 X-Men Origins Wolverine, which was not a great movie, and the portrayal of Deadpool was really terrible. Not to the fault of Ryan Reynolds, but actually the handling of the character, the look, and also the way they made him the villain, and just everything was just wrong, and it was a big joke. The achievement of this was Ryan Reynolds' rescuing of that character because of his passion for it. What he had done was he had gotten a small group of his movie buddies. The exact story, not sure, but it was they had filmed some test footage, kind of like doing a little promo, like pilot of Deadpool, and it became viral on the internet, and that's where all of a sudden they decided to move ahead with Deadpool, which broke records and which is extremely successful, which brings us now to Deadpool 2. And in the beginning, there was lots of controversy because of Ryan Reynolds' control over that character and his passion for it. You know, they went through some directors and stuff. So right now, it was been directed by David Leitch, and I went and saw it last night. I don't have any opening numbers because I actually saw it on Thursday, so it hasn't really gotten the official weekend numbers haven't come in. But I'm sure it's going to do well just from word of mouth because I saw it, and first thing coming up, because I went in there expecting a lot of the usual, you know, guns and jokes and the gratuitous goofball violence, which I'm all about, but it's, you know, a simpler kind of movie. It's a popcorn flick, but there was surprisingly more substance to this movie. And it really, you know, opening up with the loss of Vanessa, obviously his girlfriend from the first movie that, you know, wasn't sure how that was going to play out with, you know, Deadpool and just having a girlfriend and having that, you know, domesticated life, him being a gun for hire. Of course, I don't know how the family, you know, we didn't know how the family lifestyle was going to play into Deadpool, you know, being, of course, a deadly mercenary for hire, even though he's trying to play it off as a hero, but it's still kind of more like an anti-hero. So we open up with the loss of Vanessa, which that kind of answers the question already how that dynamic was going to work, because it was taken immediately out of the picture and becomes the protagonist for the movie. So because of that, Deadpool gets to that point where he hits rock bottom, and then we bring in Colossus, who brings him into the X-Mansion just to kind of counsel him. And I really enjoy that friendship with Colossus, even though, you know, it's kind of like they're at odds with each other, but that dynamic between them, that little friendship, that little frenemy dynamic they have going on is really interesting. And you see where it carries over consistently from Deadpool 1. And of course, we're in the X-Mansion, and to our surprise, we get a cameo of the X-Men when Wade's throwing a little temper tantrum, and the X-Men just kind of shut the door on him real quick. And really, the only thing I caught was the Blue Beast. So I had to look it up on IMDb, and it was James McAvoy, Evan Peters, and Nicholas Hoult is the Beast, and making him blue kind of made it quick to catch up on him. Now, Hugh Jackman is uncredited in Wolverine, and I don't know if that's because of the after-credits scene or because he was actually in that X-Mansion thing, and it's really too soon for me to find any YouTube stills to see if he was actually in the X-Mansion scene. But, you know, I'm going to follow up and check up on that. So obviously, Deadpool created in the 90s by Rob Liefeld, same creator of Cable, who their history kind of goes hand in hand, because the history behind Cable is very interesting, because in the 90s, there was New Mutants, a spin-off X-Men book, and it was kind of failing in sales until right around the last issue they had brought in this character called Cable. And that, all of a sudden, there was a spike and a big fan following and interest in Cable, and they decided to move forward, and New Mutants became X-Force, with Rob Liefeld again helming the title, and the creation of Deadpool. I believe it was X-Force 1 or 2 where Deadpool was created. And then Deadpool, of course, being a parody, a lot of people don't know this, of DC's Deathstroke, where his name was, I think it was Slade, but, that's where you get your Wade from. Of course, now Deadpool's more true to his comics and the way, breaking the fourth wall and everything. But this Cable thing, I want to talk a lot about that because moving forward, the X-Men franchise is kind of taking a little rocky road. But as X-Men fans, we're kind of become accustomed to plot holes and inconsistencies where I think we've gotten used to being able to forgive and accept anything. That being said, if you look at this X-Force potential and how they wound up at the end of the movie, the newest version of the comics, there's been the roster, a recent lineup of the X-Force it's been called Uncanny X-Force, and that was made up of Archangel, Wolverine, Deadpool, and Psylocke, and then some others weaving in and out. One of that including X-23, but it was a more violent X-Men spinoff. And so you look at how can you achieve that now, and where could you go with that if you move forward? Because they had a solid couple characters at the end, but it still needs something, especially if they're going to run with these Deadpool solo movies and a potential X-Force franchise. So how can we do that? And I say bring in X-23 because of her she was the hit of Logan, and now you can say like the timelines and it takes place after Deadpool and stuff, but I mean, us as fans, we're going to buy anything because as far as, X-Men Days of Future Past made it, it's like all bets are off as far as, timelines and consistencies. So I think that's an interesting route to go because X-23, the Laura character, was a standout in Logan. Another thing happening in the X-Men universe is this New Mutants movie, and I don't know where they're going to go with that as far as, because it looks like it's taking a whole different turn. And it's becoming more of like a horror psychological thriller. So I'm not sure what the plan is with that. But historically in the comics, New Mutants, the remainder of New Mutants becomes X-Force. So I don't know if we're going to introduce any other characters. Like there's Cannonball. Shatterstar was an original character in X-Force, and they kind of took care of him pretty quick. So yeah, there's a lot of potential going forward that. But going to Cable, so Josh Brolin, he's in both universes. We got him as Thanos in Infinity War. And just coming weeks after that, he's portraying Cable again. And really a perfect rendition of Cable. Now, I didn't dig too deep into his history about, him being the son of Cyclops and Jean Grey. I don't know if they're going to go that way because I don't know what's happening with this third X-Men movie and what direction they're taking because, Days of Future Past kind of reinvigorated that second group of X-Men, which is the James McAvoy group, to no fault of their own. It was, it wasn't the first one, X-Men, after X-Men First Class, where they decided to reboot the X-Men, I believe it was in the 60s, it was sort of lukewarm received as far as, even though Michael Fassbender was a fantastic Magneto and James McAvoy as Professor X, all the acting and everything was great, just like with the setting or the plot line, and it kind of got a somewhat reboot, or not an almost reboot, but kind of like a reset in Days of Future Past, where they fixed a lot of the plot inconsistencies, and that's where we have the X-Men that we have now. And I don't know, X-Men Apocalypse was just, me personally, I think worldwide was just kind of lukewarm received. It just wasn't enough. It just was, I don't know, it just seemed weak. It was lacking something. They look like they're going towards this Phoenix Saga, which has a lot of potential, but the thing is, we've done the Phoenix Saga, so I don't know how much juice that's got left. Another elephant in the room to take into consideration is the possible purchase of Fox by Marvel, and that could change everything. I have a prediction that the fate of the X-Men franchise, if Marvel were to make a purchase of Fox, would depend on the reception of this third movie, which I believe is titled X-Men Phoenix or X-Men Dark Phoenix. So I really think how that performs and how that's critically received is going to take a lot into play of how they're going to work the X-Men if they decide to work the X-Men into this universe. That being said, I think because of Deadpool's, breaking the fourth wall and not being really having to strictly adhere to the X-Men continuity, I would think, and Disney's even said there's room for a rated R Deadpool movie in the Marvel Universe, especially because it's not specifically a Disney logo on that. So these are interesting possibilities we have, and it's just, Deadpool in the Marvel Universe, he has a very interesting dynamic with the other characters. Like, you got some possibilities you have him with Spider-Man, just kind of, those Avengers things and kind of being the comic relief. It'd be interesting to see how he would mix into that. A big surprise from this movie was Zazie Beetz' portrayal of Domino, which really enjoyed her. Really enjoyed the character. Very different from the comics, but you can't just expect to see all these comic things on screen. You can't just have your cake and eat it too. If you're just going to repeat the comic book story on the screen, then what are you getting? You know what I'm saying? You have to, it's all artist renditions. That's what everything is. These three Spider-Mans, these different versions of the Hulk, it's artist renditions. Same way comic books work. Comic books reboot and have different artists and interpretation of characters. So you got to have an open mind and accept that. And I think us as audiences have grown to change. We've kind of matured a little bit to learn what we're accepting from these superhero movies. But all in all, Deadpool was definitely I got a feeling it's going to be a big success. I definitely hope to see more of Josh Brolin as Cable, and I hope they move forward with that X-Force franchise. But really, this movie, really a lot deeper, a lot of character growth, and not a lot of just the gratuitous, goofy violence that I was expecting. I mean, it was all there, but there was some depth to this movie, so very impressed. We're going to see you guys in a couple of weeks. Next thing coming down the road is we've got Solo, so very excited about that show. So thanks for listening. So I want to, really quick before I go, I want to get back to this Orlando Weekly thing. Like I said, right now, if you go to Bunzerelly.com, I made a convenient little roadmap for you. It's just the write-in round, so you actually have to write in the Bunzerelly show and then enter your email. The reason for entering your email is just to make sure it's like I'm not pulling any shenanigans, having bots or anything voting. It's to make sure you're a real person. You can opt out of any mailing list or anything, so it's really not a problem. If we make the nomination round, now the reason why this helps us grow, it's not just about having a plaque on the wall. What we're trying to do is every victory is a victory here. If we make that nomination round, then we become a selectable option in the second round. And what that does is that gets us more exposure just from making that round, because people are like, well, who's this Bunzerelly show? And then we get a little, last year I got a little surge in downloads just from that, and that helps the show grow, expose it to more people. And we get further than that, hopefully we get featured in the magazine, and that's another victory. So if you guys like the show and you want to see us grow, the more exposure we get and the bigger the show grows, the more things we get to do to make the show better. So appreciate your support. And like I said, we'll do Solo in a couple of weeks, and thanks for listening.